The palace was quiet that night, the kind of heavy silence that made every little sound feel louder. Laila moved through the long corridor with her cleaning cloth tucked into her apron, her steps soft and steady. She always worked late. It kept her mind busy, and it let Emerald sleep a little longer. Layla's hair was the first thing people always noticed, long, dark, and soft, falling down her back like a shadow. She tried to keep it tied up while working, but loose strands still fell across her face every time she bent down. Her eyes were warm brown, gentle even on the hardest days, and she carried herself with that quiet strength people often mistook for obedience. Tonight, she was tired, but she didn't complain. Omegas didn't have the right to complain in the palace. She wiped a small table, humming softly to stay awake, when a sharp crash ripped through the halls. Laila froze. The sound came from the throne room. Her heart slammed once, hard. Emerald was cleaning there. Laila didn't think. She ran. Her slippers slapped against the cold marble floor, breath breaking in her chest. The palace suddenly felt too large, too dark, too dangerous. And as she neared the throne room entrance, she heard a small, shaky voice. I didn't mean to. I swear. Emerald. Laila pushed through the doors and stopped. Pieces of a shattered artifact lay across the floor like scattered stars. The room glowed faintly from the moonlight spilling in, making the broken shards look even worse. Warriors surrounded her little sister, who was kneeling on the cold floor, her whole body trembling. Emerald looked tiny, almost fragile. 16, soft-faced, with light brown hair always tied in a messy bun because she never knew how to make it neat. Her green eyes, the reason Laila called her M, short for Emerald, were wide and red from tears. She kept trying to explain herself, but fear twisted her words. I didn't see it there. I was dusting the corner. I didn't mean. A warrior grabbed her arm roughly, making her cry out. Laila stepped forward instantly. Don't touch her like that! Her voice echoed against the walls. The warriors hesitated, not because she scared them, but because someone else was coming. Bootsteps, heavy, slow, commanding. The air changed. It always did when Alpha Zade walked into a room. He appeared through the door like a shadow made of iron. Tall, broad shoulders, sharp jaw, cold eyes as dark as midnight. His hair was black, cut short, and his presence alone made the room tighten. Alpha aura poured off him in waves, heavy, suffocating, powerful. Laila swallowed hard. She had seen him from afar many times, but standing in the same room with him, it was different. His scent carried through the air, clean but sharp, like cold stone after rain. Zade's gaze swept the room, then fell on the shattered relic. Silence. Then, slow and chilling, his eyes shifted to Emerald. The look alone made M curl into herself, sobbing quietly. Who did this? Zade's voice was low and deep, like distant thunder. The warrior holding M shoved her forward. The Omega girl, Alpha. She claims it was an accident. Zade's jaw tightened. Laila felt her blood go cold. The broken artifact wasn't just decoration. It was a sacred crest passed down the Alpha bloodline, touched only during rituals. Breaking it was more than a mistake. It was an insult, a crime, punishable by things Laila didn't even want to think about. Zade walked closer, slow, every step echoing danger. Emerald tried to shuffle back, but the warrior held her still. "Stand," Zade ordered. Emerald couldn't. Her legs shook too much. Laila ran to her, dropping beside her little sister, pulling her close. "Please, she didn't mean to." Zade's gaze cut to her. "And who are you?" he asked, voice cold without effort. "Her sister," Laila whispered. "I'm Laila." He looked her over, not with interest, but with that same hard assessment he used on warriors who disappointed him. His eyes flicked from her worried face down to her shaking hands wrapped around Emerald. Then back to the relic. "Breaking this," he said quietly, "is a crime punishable by life confinement or death." Emerald sobbed harder. Laila felt her own breath catch. "No, please, she's just a child." Zade's eyes narrowed. 16 is old enough to understand consequences? Laila felt something inside her break. Emerald clutched her arm like she was drowning. "Laila, I'm sorry. I'm so—" "Shh, don't cry." Laila forced her voice calm even though she felt like screaming. "I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you." Zade raised a hand. "Guards! No!" Laila shouted before she could think. Everyone turned. Laila slowly got to her feet. Her knees shook, but she kept her back straight. She pushed Emerald gently behind her. "I did it," Laila said. The room fell silent. Zade's eyes sharpened. "You what?" Laila swallowed hard, palms sweaty. "I broke it, not her." Emerald's voice cracked behind her. "Laila, no!" Laila squeezed her sister's hand once, quiet enough for only her to hear. "Please, let me protect you." Zade stepped closer, towering over her. "You expect me to believe that?" Laila lifted her chin slightly. "Punish me instead. I'll take the sentence." Zade stared at her for a long, heavy moment. His expression held no mercy, no warmth, nothing soft, only ice. "You offer yourself in her place," he said slowly, "so she may walk free?" Laila nodded. Emerald clung to her shirt, shaking, whispering her name over and over. Zade's eyes darkened, something unreadable flickering in them. Not pity, but something sharper. He stepped even closer until Laila could feel the force of his aura pressing into her chest. "Very well," he said. "Her life is spared." Emerald gasped in relief. Laila closed her eyes for 1 second. Then, Zade's voice dropped lower. "Your life now belongs to me." Laila froze. "You will come to the Alpha Wing," he continued, tone cold and final. "And you will serve me directly, in every way I command." Emerald screamed and grabbed Layla's arm. Laila held her for the last time that night, whispering into her hair. "It's okay, Em. Don't be scared." She didn't let her voice shake, but inside, she felt everything collapsing. Zade turned away. "Take her." A guard reached for Laila. Emerald tried to fight them, crying violently. "No! Don't take my sister! Please!" Laila kissed Em's forehead, tears finally slipping free. "Stay with me in your heart," she whispered. "I'll survive." And then the guard pulled her away. Emerald fell to the floor, screaming Layla's name as the doors closed. The night swallowed the sound, and Laila walked into the darkness of the Alpha Wing, with her freedom gone. The Alpha Wing was nothing like the rest of the palace. It was quiet in a different way. Not empty, but controlled. The air felt heavier here, colder, shaped by the man who ruled it. Laila walked with stiff steps, pushed forward by a guard whose grip stayed on her arm. Her heart beat fast, but her face stayed calm. She didn't want the guards to smell her fear. They already looked at her like she was something dirty on their boots. Her long, dark hair had fallen from its tie during the struggle, brushing her back with every step. Her eyes stung from crying, but she kept them lowered, watching how her bare feet touched the smooth floor. Anything to keep from thinking too much. They reached a heavy wooden door carved with wolf symbols. The guard let go of her at last. "Wait," Laila did. The guard knocked once, and the door opened so suddenly Laila flinched. Alpha Zade stood inside. Even in the dim room, he looked out of place, too sharp, too powerful for a space meant for sleep. His shoulders filled the doorway, his dark hair catching a hint of fire from the candles behind him. His eyes, they were almost black, but under the light, Laila saw something deeper, something cold as winter stone. He did not look at her first. He looked at the guard. "Leave," Zade said. The guard bowed and stepped away quickly, almost with relief. The door closed behind him. Now it was only Zade and Laila and the low, tense sound of her breathing. Zade didn't tell her to step inside. He didn't move aside to give space. He simply stared at her, silent, unreadable. Laila lowered her eyes again, unsure of what he wanted. Zade's voice broke the silence. "Look at me." She lifted her gaze slowly. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened when she obeyed, as if he wasn't used to obedience coming with dignity. Laila stood straight, even though her hands shook at her sides. "You threw yourself at my feet," Zade said. "I want to hear the reason from your own mouth. Not from fear, not from panic, just truth." His voice was deep, a little rough, like he didn't use soft tones often. His gaze never left hers, watching every twitch of her face. Laila swallowed. "Emerald, my sister, she's all I have," she whispered. "She has no one but me. I raised her since she was a baby. She didn't deserve punishment for an accident, so I took it." "And if the punishment had been death?" Zade asked. Her heart tightened. She had wondered the same thing. "If that's what it took," she said softly, "I would still have taken her place." Zade's jaw clenched by a fraction. Not anger, but something sharper, quickly hidden. He turned and walked deeper into the room. For a moment, Laila wondered if she should follow. Then he looked back over his shoulder, a quiet command in his eyes. She stepped inside. His chambers were large, but nothing about them felt warm. No personal belongings, no softness, just stone, dark wood, and the faint smell of night air drifting through a half-open window. Zade stood near a desk, hands behind him. "You understand what you become now?" Laila nodded faintly, but said nothing. "Say it," he ordered. Her voice cracked, but she forced the words out. "Your concubine." His eyes flickered. "Not by desire," Zade said, "but by debt." Laila felt heat rise under her skin. Not shame, just pain. Zade stepped closer, slow, his height swallowing the space between them. His scent brushed her senses again, cold and sharp, like the world just after a storm. "You disgust me," he said plainly. "Not you alone, all Omegas who think sacrifice is noble. It's stupidity, it's weakness." Laila didn't let her face change. If his goal was to break her, she wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Zade noticed. He spoke again, voice low. "You are here because you begged to save your sister. I granted it. But don't confuse mercy with softness. In this wing, you live by my rules." He lifted a hand and touched her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. His fingers were warm, but his touch carried no gentleness. Layla's breath hitched from the closeness. Not fear, just the shock of being held by someone who looked carved from stone. "You are not to leave this wing without permission," Zade said. "You will stay in the room prepared for you. You will not speak to anyone unless I order it. You will come when I call. And you will not question anything." Laila nodded once. Zade let go of her chin slowly, like he was testing her reaction. But she stayed still. It seemed to bother him. "Why didn't you tremble?" he asked suddenly. "You trembled earlier." Laila blinked, surprised by the question. "I tremble when I'm scared for Emerald," she whispered. "Not for myself." Silence. This time, Zade didn't hide what flickered behind his eyes. Not warmth, not pity, confusion, as if her answer didn't fit the world he believed in. "You will sleep here," he said abruptly, stepping back. "Your new life begins tomorrow." A servant entered quietly to guide her to her room. As Laila followed, she felt Zade's gaze on her back, heavy as a hand pressed between her shoulders, heavy and intense. The door shut behind Laila with a soft thud, but the sound felt loud in the silence. Too loud. Her room was beautiful. That was the first thing she noticed. But the beauty felt empty. A large bed stood in the center, covered in soft white sheets. A golden frame hung above it. There were candles on the walls, unlit, and a small balcony that looked over the dark woods. Everything looked perfect. Everything felt wrong. This was not a normal servant room. This was a room meant for companions. A room meant for women who belonged to the Alpha. Laila touched the bed lightly, and her fingers trembled. Not because she feared him, but because she didn't know the rules of this life. She didn't know how to survive it. A knock hit the door. Laila turned quickly. One of Zade's warriors stood there, big, broad, rough-looking. He tossed a thin book onto the bed. "The Alpha said you should bring this to him. He wants you to read it aloud." Laila blinked. "Read to him?" "That's what he said." Not touch him, not warm his bed, not anything like she feared. Just read. The warrior left without another word. Laila held the book to her chest for a moment, breathing slowly. Then she walked to Zade's chambers. Her steps were steady at first, but as she neared his door, her heart beat faster. She knocked softly. "Enter." His voice was deep and low, unreadable as always. Laila stepped inside. Zade sat by the fireplace, a thick fur cloak draped across one shoulder. The fire cast warm light across his sharp features. High cheekbones, strong jaw, dark lashes framing those cold eyes. He didn't look at her when she entered. "Sit," he said. She sat on a low stool beside him. He didn't look at her, didn't even turn his head. "Read," he ordered. Laila opened the book, her hands shaking just a little. She cleared her throat and read in a soft, steady tone. It was a book about wolf history. Long battles, old leaders, victories carved in pain. Her voice filled the room, but Zade didn't say a word. He didn't touch her, didn't question her, didn't even breathe differently. He stayed cold stone. When the fire burned low, he said quietly, "Enough." Laila closed the book. "You may go." She waited, unsure if he wanted something more. He didn't. "Go." So she stood and walked away. He never lifted his eyes. Back in her room, the silence hit harder. The walls felt too white. The bed felt too large. The cold air slipped in even with the window shut. She wrapped her arms around herself and lay on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling. That was when she heard voices outside her door. Warriors. "The Alpha hates Omegas," one said. "Always has. Ever since—" "Shh, don't say that out loud." Whatever happens to that girl, better her than someone important." Their footsteps faded, but their words stayed. Hates Omegas. Laila felt something heavy settle in her chest. She turned her face into the pillow to muffle her cry. Not loud, not broken. Just a quiet ache escaping her. But even through tears, she whispered, "I won't break. Not for them. Not for him." She wiped her eyes and forced herself to breathe slowly. She would endure this. For Emerald. Always for Emerald. Laila must have drifted into a light sleep, because she jolted awake at the sound of a small voice outside her door. Sir, I just want to see her. Please." Layla's heart jumped. "Emerald." Laila ran to the door and opened it a crack. 2 warriors had her little sister cornered. Emerald looked so small, hair messy, cheeks streaked with tears, green eyes huge with fear. Laila whispered. Emerald gasped when she saw her. "Laila!" One warrior blocked her from rushing in. "She's not allowed here." "She's my sister!" Emerald cried. "I just want to see her." "Enough!" the guard barked. Before Laila could speak, another voice cut through the corridor. "What is going on?" "Zade." The warrior stiffened. Emerald froze. Zade stood at the end of the hall, wearing only a black shirt and loose trousers, his hair slightly mussed as if he had been resting. His eyes took in the scene, Emerald trembling, Laila half hidden behind the door. "She sneaked in," one warrior said quickly. "We were taking her out." Emerald tried to wipe her tears, but they kept falling. Zade walked closer, slow, expression unreadable. Laila expected him to yell, to send Emerald away, to drag her out. But he stopped in front of them, glanced at the little girl, and said, "Let her have 1 minute." Emerald and Laila both froze. The warriors stared like he had grown wings. "Alpha, are you sure?" "Are you deaf?" Zade snapped. "I said 1 minute." The guards stepped aside. Emerald launched herself into Layla's arms. "Laila! I was so scared. I thought they hurt you." Her little voice cracked with sobs. "I tried to come earlier, but they wouldn't. And I thought you were in pain, and—" Laila hugged her tight, burying her face in Emerald's hair. The scent of her little sister, warm, familiar, made her eyes sting again. "Oh, Em," she whispered. "I'm okay, I promise. Don't cry." "You're not okay," Emerald whimpered. "You're in the Alpha Wing. This is where he keeps the people he... Laila held her a little tighter. "Listen to me. I'm safe. I'm breathing. I'm here. And you have to be brave now, okay?" Emerald sniffled. "I don't want to go back alone." Laila stroked her cheek softly. "I'll see you again soon. But right now, you must go before you get into trouble. For me. Please." Emerald shook her head, tears falling again. But Laila cupped her face gently and whispered, "You're my little star, Em. You guide me, so keep shining until I come back to you." Emerald nodded slowly, still crying. A warrior cleared his throat. "Time's up!" Emerald hugged her tightly one last time. "Don't disappear," she whispered. "I won't," Laila promised. The guards led Emerald away. Laila watched her go until the hall turned empty. Then she turned and saw Zade still standing there, watching her. Not with warmth, not with pity, just watching. A strange look flickered in his eyes before he turned away. "Sleep," he said. "Tomorrow begins early." And he walked off without another word. The palace kitchen was alive with clattering pots, the scent of roasted herbs, and too many curious eyes. Laila stepped in quietly. Her long, dark lashes fluttered as she scanned the room, shoulders hunched, trying to make herself small. She always did that when nervous, tucking her chin, pulling her hair forward, trying to fade. It never worked. Everyone noticed her. Whispers rose instantly. "That's the new one," someone murmured. "The Omega who gave herself up." "She's prettier than I thought," another said, openly staring at her soft features, her delicate build, her tired but stubborn eyes. Laila kept her head down. Inside, her stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten since yesterday, but the thought of food made her chest tight. A young maid suddenly leaned close to another worker and whispered loudly enough for half the kitchen to hear. "They say the last concubine ran away because the Alpha is too wild in bed." The room gasped. Laila froze. A wooden spoon smacked down on the counter. The older cook, a round woman with dark skin and sharp eyes, glared at the whispering maid. "Keep talking nonsense like a parrot, and you'll choke on your lies," she snapped. The girl squeaked and quieted. But the others giggled, leaning in with excited eyes. "Wild," one repeated, fanning herself. "I heard he leaves marks," another said dreamily. "Maybe that's why he never keeps one long?" A third smirked. "Maybe our Alpha wants something different." Layla's eyes widened. Are they well at all? This was gossip about the man who had just sentenced her to a life she didn't choose. The older cook turned to Laila with a kinder look. "You sit. You look faint." "I'm fine," Laila whispered. "You are not fine. You are thin and shaking. Sit." But Laila stepped back. "I can't eat right now." Her voice cracked. She hated that, hated sounding weak. The cook sighed. "Girl, starving won't fix anything." But Laila only managed a small, tired nod and slipped toward the back door. Her chest felt heavy. Her body felt cold. Every moment in that palace seemed designed to break her. But she wouldn't break. She promised Emerald she wouldn't. Zade found her sitting under the small window beside her room later that evening. Her knees hugged to her chest, her dark hair falling over her face. She looked small, too small, but something in him hardened instead of softening. "You didn't eat." It wasn't a question. Laila didn't look up. "I wasn't hungry." "You will eat tomorrow." Silence. Then he added, "Because I won't have you fainting on palace grounds. It reflects poorly on me." Not because he cared, not because he felt anything. She nodded slowly, not trusting her voice. Zade turned to leave, but paused. For the first time, Laila saw something flicker in his eyes. Something searching, questioning. But he shut it down so fast, she wondered if she imagined it. Without another word, he walked away, his cold aura trailing behind him like frost. Night settled over the palace like a heavy cloak, silent and cold. The Alpha wing always felt colder than the rest of the fortress. Maybe because the man who ruled it carried winter in his veins. Laila tried to stand. She only made it 3 steps before the hallway tilted. Her vision blurred. Her legs buckled. Her body, already pushed past its limit, gave up. She hit the floor quietly. No scream, no sound, just a soft thud as her cheek touched the cold stone. Her long dark hair spread around her like ink. Her breathing turned shallow, her lips pale. She didn't move. Zade was walking down the hall, hands behind his back, eyes cold and distant. His night patrol had just returned with reports, and he intended to read them before resting. But then he smelled it. Not danger, not blood, weakness. He didn't know why his wolf reacted, why it surged forward with a low growl, alert, restless. But his steps quickened, boots hitting stone with sudden urgency. And then he saw her. Laila, unconscious on the cold floor, her small frame curled in on itself, her lashes still, her lips barely tinted with color, her skin too pale against his dark corridor. Something snapped inside him, sharp, instant, uncontrolled. He was beside her in seconds. Laila. Her name left his mouth before he could stop it. No response. His jaw clenched. A strange heat moved through his chest. Something unwanted, unwelcome. He lifted her gently, his arms sliding under her light body. She weighed almost nothing, too little. His wolf snarled at the realization. Zade's heartbeat kicked harder. Why does she look like she hasn't eaten in days? He hated the thought, hated the feeling that followed. He stood and carried her, fast, his steps long and controlled, even though something wild pushed inside him. The Alpha did not rush. Zade never rushed. But now he almost did. The palace healer gasped when Zade pushed the doors open. "My Alpha!" "She fainted," Zade said. His voice was flat, but his eyes were not. "Fix her." They laid Laila on a wide table. Her dark hair spilled across the sheets, her breathing still weak. The healer pressed her fingers to Laila's pulse. "She's starving. Severely." Zade's jaw ticked. "She refused food," he muttered. "Then you should have ordered her," the healer blurted out, then froze, realizing what she'd just said. Zade didn't snap. He didn't growl. He only stared at Laila's unconscious face, and for a moment, he looked almost human. "Just fix her," he repeated quietly. The healer nodded and got to work. Word traveled fast, too fast. Emerald burst into the Alpha wing like a frightened storm, tears streaming down her face. Her small hands trembled, her green-gold eyes wide in panic. Eyes that made her look like a frightened little woodland creature. "Laila!" she screamed. Warriors blocked her. "You can't be here!" "Move!" she cried, voice breaking. "That's my sister! Please! She's all I have!" She tried to push through, but a guard grabbed her arm. She kicked, she scratched. Her voice cracked as she sobbed. "Let me see my sister. Please, please, she needs me." Zade stepped out of the healer's room just in time to see Emerald shaking, her whole body trembling with fear. For a moment, his aura softened. Barely, but it did. "Let her in," he said. The guards froze. "Alpha, I said let her in!" Emerald ran straight to him. Not even noticing, she grabbed his shirt with both hands. "Is she alive?" she cried. "Please tell me she's alive!" Zade looked down at her. Her small face was soaked with tears, freckles damp, lower lip trembling. Her young wolf aura was fragile, like a candle in a storm. "She's alive," he said quietly. Emerald broke into a sob of relief, clinging harder to him. Zade stiffened, but he didn't push her away. He guided her inside. Emerald rushed to her sister and cupped Layla's face with shaking hands. Layla whispered weakly, her eyes fluttering open. Emerald cried harder. You scared me, she whispered. Why didn't you eat? Why would you do that to me? Layla tried to lift her hand but was too weak, so Em placed Layla's hand against her own cheek. Zade watched from the doorway. Something twisted in his chest. He didn't like it. He didn't understand it. Make sure she survives, Zade said. His tone was sharp, commanding, but something warm hid under it. The healer looked up. Of course, Alpha. And feed her. Force her if you must. His voice dropped. She doesn't get to die. Emerald looked up at him, eyes shining with gratitude. Zade looked away. No, he didn't care. He couldn't. A dead concubine would stain his reputation. That was all. That was the reason. That was... He inhaled sharply, but his wolf whispered something different, something he refused to hear. He straightened and walked out, aura cold again. Yet he walked slower than usual. As if leaving was suddenly harder. Layla slept for most of the next day. The healer kept a bowl of broth near her bedside, but she only managed 2 spoonfuls before drifting off again. Her lashes were still heavy, her breath soft and slow. Her face looked calmer now, not as pale, but still fragile. Zade stood in the doorway. He didn't remember walking there. He didn't remember deciding to come. One moment he was reviewing reports in his office, and the next, his feet had brought him back to her room. He stood stiffly, arms crossed, trying to make sense of the strange tension in his chest. The healer glanced at him and bowed her head. She should recover fully, Alpha. He didn't answer her. His eyes stayed on Layla. On the way, her chest gently rose and fell. On the way, a loose strand of her dark hair brushed her cheek. On the faint warmth in the room that didn't exist anywhere else in his wing. His jaw tightened. This was unnecessary. He turned to leave. Then her hand twitched weakly on the sheets. He paused. A faint sound escaped her lips. Not a word. Not a cry. Just a soft, tired exhale that brushed a place in him he didn't want to admit existed. Before he realized what he was doing, he stepped closer. He brushed the hair away from her face with the back of his fingers. And there it was. The pull. Soft, but unmistakable. Like a thread wrapping around something deep inside his chest. Not painful, not pleasant. Just there, silent and stubborn. His wolf stirred, not with aggression, not with hunger, with something worse, recognition. Zade jerked his hand back as if burned. The healer pretended not to notice his sudden breath. Alpha? She asked softly. He forced his voice steady. Make sure she eats again when she wakes. Yes, Alpha. He walked out quickly, steps sharp, aura cold again. But the feeling followed him, and it annoyed him more than he'd ever admit. By morning, sunlight warmed her skin, and Layla finally opened her eyes fully. She lay still for a moment, breathing softly, letting her strength return. When she sat up, her long, dark hair slid down her back like a curtain. Her movements were gentle, careful, almost shy. The healer smiled warmly at her. You scared everyone. Layla flushed. I didn't mean to. Eat, the healer said, placing a warm bowl in front of her. No arguments. This time, Layla tried, and slowly, she managed. Her strength came back inch by inch. She could sit, then stand, then walk a few steps without shaking. But every time she moved, she felt it. A shadow watching her from somewhere she couldn't see. She assumed it was the guards. She didn't know it was Zade. He didn't approach her again. He had no reason to. but he found himself passing by her door. Too often. Sometimes he walked by and stopped, listening for the healer's voice inside. Sometimes he paused in the hallway, pretending to check a report, while his eyes drifted to the thin crack under her door, watching the soft light move inside. Twice, he leaned against the wall outside her room at night, telling himself he was simply checking the security of the wing. But his wolf knew better. Every time she breathed, the thread inside him tugged, and every time the tug came, he crushed it. He refused to acknowledge anything. Stress, he told himself. Responsibility, nothing more. He was Alpha. He didn't feel. Emerald arrived every day, carrying tiny treats stolen from the kitchen. Berries, a sweet bun, sometimes a jar of honey she hid under her shirt like a treasure. The guards let her pass without question now. Zade's softened aura that night had not been forgotten. "Lie!" Emerald burst into the room with wild joy. "You're awake!" Laila smiled softly. Her smiles were always soft, never wide. "Come here, Em." Emerald ran into her arms. Hugging her so hard, Laila laughed quietly. Emerald was small, with bright green-gold eyes and soft curls that always fell to her cheeks. Every time she cried, she looked like a broken forest sprite. But today, she glowed with relief. "I brought you something!" Emerald lifted her shirt to reveal a whole loaf of bread. Laila gasped. "Em, where did you—" "Don't ask," Emerald said proudly. Laila braided her hair while they talked. Emerald sitting on a cushion at her feet, her curly hair falling in thick, messy waves. Layla's fingers worked gently, brushing the strands, weaving them carefully. "You'll look less like a tiny lion now," Laila teased softly. Emerald giggled. "But a cute lion, right?" "The cutest." Servants passing the hallway slowed down to admire them. A sweet little Omega with braids. A quiet older sister with soft, tired eyes. Two girls holding on to each other in a palace meant to crush them. It made people whisper. But not in cruelty, in curiosity. Because every time the giggles or the soft sister whispers echoed down the hall, Zade paused and listened. By the third day, word spread. "He keeps walking past her door," one maid whispered. "It's the 5th time today," another said. "Maybe he wants to check if she fainted again," someone added, but the bolder one smirked. "Or maybe the Alpha is not as cold as he pretends." "He wouldn't. He hates Omegas." "Then explain why he keeps returning to the Concubine's room." The older cook slapped the counter. "Mind your business." But even she glanced toward the Alpha wing as if she too wondered. That night, Zade stood outside Layla's door again. Nothing unusual happened. She was just inside, braiding her sister's hair again. Her soft voice floated out, gentle, warm, soothing, and still. He couldn't walk away. He stayed there, frozen in the shadows, fighting the tug inside him with all the cold logic he had. A whisper, a bond, a thread. He refused it all. He turned sharply and walked back to his chambers, jaw tight, eyes colder than ice. The hallway outside Zade's chambers was silent, almost too quiet. Laila stood at the edge, waiting as he paced inside. His shadow stretched across the stone floor, broad and dark, like a wolf circling its prey. He stopped abruptly when she stepped in. "You think I brought you here so you could wander freely?" His voice was low, sharp, full of the weight of command. "I obey your rules, Alpha," Laila said calmly, keeping her gaze steady, her dark hair falling lightly over her shoulders. "I just move quietly where I need to. I am not weak." His jaw tightened. "Not weak? You let your sister run through the palace as if rules don't exist. You let her sneak here. You act as though your sacrifice excuses you from everything else. Layla's lips pressed into a thin line, and for the first time, her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the raw anger she had held in for days. Do you think I enjoy being here? That I enjoy every moment of hunger, humiliation, watching warriors whisper about me, the constant watching? Her voice rose, but never breaking. I endure it because I love Emerald. I survive it because she has no one else. I do not regret it. 1 second of my sacrifice is worth a lifetime of her safety. Zade's expression hardened at her words, but the tension in his body shifted. His wolf stirred, low and insistent, sensing the fire in her voice, the heartbeat that matched the pull of his own. He stepped closer, and in a blur, his hand was on her wrist. The grip was strong, commanding, but not cruel. His eyes glowed faintly, amber threads weaving through the darkness, wolf instincts rising to the surface. Layla's own wolf stirred in response. Her breath hitched, her pulse thundering in her ears. The air between them thickened, almost vibrating with the raw energy of two forces that refused to bend fully to one another. They were too close, too hot. Two wolves circling, tension snapping like steel ready to cut. And for a heartbeat, their faces were inches apart. Her soft brown eyes met his dark, molten ones. He could feel the pull, the undeniable bond threading between them. Mate energy he had refused to admit, an instinct he tried to bury beneath anger and command. Layla's lips parted slightly, breath trembling, and he leaned in, drawn despite every rational thought screaming to stop. Then he pulled back violently, snapping away from the magnetic pull that made his chest ache. His jaw was tight, his wolf growling softly in frustration. He stepped back, aura cold again, but his pulse still raced. "You will learn to obey," he said, voice low, rigid, almost shaking. "And you will survive. That is all." Layla's chest heaved as she tried to calm her own wolf. Her hands shook, but her eyes remained steady. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The palace courtyard was alive with lanterns, flickering against the dark sky, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. Music echoed, drums beating in rhythm with the wolves' howls from the distant forest. The air smelled of roasted meat, sweet wine, and the faint tang of iron from the ceremonial fires. Layla stood among the higher servants, her arms folded over her chest, her dark hair tied back neatly. Her brown eyes scanned the crowd, but she didn't dare look toward the high seat where Zade presided. She felt small, a shadow against the pageantry, yet her shoulders were straight, chin lifted. Every step she'd taken to endure, every sacrifice, every whispered promise to Emerald, it had brought her here. The full moon rose, silver and heavy, spilling its light over the festival. The pack gathered, alphas, betas, omegas, and warriors, each marked by status, each adorned in ceremonial colors. Zade sat atop the high seat, his dark form sharp and commanding, golden brown skin glinting in the moonlight, dark lashes shadowing eyes that were cold, controlled, but not for long. He scanned the crowd with practiced dominance, but then his gaze fell on her. Layla. She stood in the servants' area, hands folded, heart steady, her soft aura brushing against the edges of the ceremonial magic in the air. Zade's breath caught, first subtle, then jagged. The scent hit him before he realized it. Warm, sweet, grounding, and utterly impossible. Forbidden. Impossible. His wolf twitched, growled, snarled low and insistent. Mate! It whispered inside him. The word sent a shiver down his spine, his jaw tightening, knuckles white on the armrest. He leaned forward slightly, heart racing, eyes never leaving her. Her scent, her presence, was like a tether pulling at something primal he had spent years burying. He had sworn never to let anyone reach inside him like this. Laila, unaware of what was stirring in him, tilted her head slightly, sensing something odd. The hairs on her neck rose subtly. Her own wolf stirred, a faint pull she couldn't name, a tension in the air that made her pulse accelerate. She looked around nervously, but couldn't see anything. The crowd continued to celebrate. Music, laughter, wolves howling, lanterns swinging. Everything was normal, except for them. The air between them thickened under the full moon, invisible threads tugging at two unwilling hearts. His wolf's growl echoed in his mind, low, sharp, insistent. Her aura reacted unknowingly. To the pull, a soft hum that vibrated through the air. Zade's teeth clenched. No, this could not be. He tore his gaze away for a moment, turning back to the assembly, but every part of him screamed, every nerve, every instinct. Her scent lingered in his nose, intoxicating, impossible, forbidden. Layla's chest rose and fell faster. She felt it, the invisible tug, the undeniable magnet between them, but she didn't understand. Not yet. The moon shone above them, silver and knowing, as if it watched the thread that bound them already, silently, irrevocably. Zade exhaled slowly, forcing control back into his muscles, his wolf snarling in frustration. Not now, not here, not ever. But the pull didn't stop, and neither did the bonds whisper. Zade sat alone in the high tower chamber, the city lights below flickering like distant stars. The full moon had passed, but its memory clung to him like a shadow. His wolf prowled inside, restless, insistent, whispering the name he refused to speak aloud. He ground his teeth. I will reject it, even if it kills him. A concubine as his mate? Impossible, outrageous, unthinkable. He clenched his fists. Every instinct screamed at him, every thread of his soul pulled toward her. But he remembered his mother, her betrayal, the way she had destroyed his father's trust and left a wound in him he swore he would never open again. Love, he decided, was weakness. Desire was temporary. Mates were a bond, yes, but not love. Not here, not ever. So he isolated himself. Nights alone, meals in silence. Orders barked at warriors from a distance. Any excuse to avoid the small, stubborn Omega, who had, without permission, carved a place into his thoughts. Laila noticed immediately. The way his footsteps no longer lingered near her door. The way his gaze skimmed past her instead of piercing her, as it had before. The way his aura, once cold but alert, now pressed against her like a wall, shutting her out. She didn't understand the feeling. Something deep in her chest ached every time she sensed him near and found nothing. She missed the pull she didn't fully recognize. She couldn't explain why the absence felt heavier than fear or exhaustion. Still, she stayed respectful, soft-spoken, obedient, quiet, because even the whisper of defiance might ignite the storm she didn't know how to weather. Yet inside, she ached, for reasons she couldn't name. Emerald noticed too. "Lie," she whispered one evening as they sat in the small servant room, her fingers fidgeting with a ribbon. You seem sad. Are you hurt?" Laila gave a small, sad smile, brushing a curl behind her ear. "No, Em, I'm fine. Just tired." Emerald's green-gold eyes narrowed. Her small hands rested on her knees. You don't look fine. You miss someone? Layla's throat tightened. She swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice even. It's complicated, Em. Things we can't explain. Emerald frowned, her small lips pressing together. But it's hurting you. I can see it. Layla's hand brushed Emerald's shoulder. Shh. I'm okay. Really. But the younger sister's innocent concern made the pain sharper. Emerald didn't know why her sister's heart ached, only that it did, and that made Laila ache even more. High above the palace, Zade's wolf circled, restless, growling in frustration. Every instinct screamed for Laila. Every scent, every memory of her near him pulled at the bond, threaded and stubborn. But he refused. Because desire without control was chaos. Because mates could exist without love. Because concubines were not to be loved, no matter the pull of the moon, the blood, the bond. He clenched his jaw, staring out at the dark city. The pull inside him was maddening. It gnawed at his pride, his control, his reason. He could almost feel her pulse, soft and steady, just beyond reach. He inhaled, forcing the wolf to back down. He would reject it. He would survive this, even if it meant bearing his own heart. The palace hall glittered with torches, shadows dancing on the stone columns as warriors gathered for the annual treaty meeting. Laila stood among the palace workers, hands clasped in front of her, head lowered the way she always did, trying to be invisible, but she never really was. Her presence had a softness that pulled the eye, warm brown skin that caught the firelight. A slender frame that moved quietly but with surprising grace, eyes gentle enough to calm a storm, and her long, dark hair, braided neatly down her back, made her look fragile. But she wasn't. Tonight, she felt Zade's aura brushing her skin the way wind kisses a flame. Cold, sharp, warning. He hadn't looked at her in days. She didn't expect him to, but she still felt his presence like a pulse. Alpha Ronin of the Stormfang pack entered as if he owned the air around him. Tall, broad-shouldered, wolfish grin, scars on his neck telling stories he probably enjoyed sharing. His aura hit the room like a gust of heat. Zade greeted him with a stiff nod, jaw tight. Ronin's eyes roamed lazily until they hit Laila. He stopped moving. His pupils dilated, his nostrils flared. A slow, deliberate smile curved his mouth. "Who is that?" he asked, voice low and appreciative. Zade's head snapped in the same direction so fast a few warriors flinched. Laila froze. Her heart thudded painfully. She dropped her gaze instantly, but she felt Ronin studying her, the way men study things they want. "She's interesting," Ronin murmured. Such a soft scent, and that spirit, his eyes narrowed. "Not a common servant." "Enough," Zade said, voice cold enough to frost the air. Ronin chuckled. "Don't bristle. I'm simply observing." Zade's wolf pressed hard against his skin, claws scraping. A growl rose in his throat. He pushed it down. Hard. Ronin stepped closer to Laila. She tensed, instinctively shrinking backward, but not in fear, in discomfort, in confusion. Zade's gaze sharpened, following every inch of her movement. Ronin reached out and lifted her chin with 2 fingers. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Very beautiful." Laila inhaled sharply, trying to step away, but his grip tightened. A heartbeat passed. And then, Zade's voice sliced the air. "Remove your hand from her." The room stilled. Warriors froze mid-step. Conversation died. Ronin turned, amused. "Why? Is she special to you?" Zade didn't blink. "She is mine." Layla's breath caught. Not in joy, in shock. Ronin raised an eyebrow. "Ah, a concubine." Zade's eyelid twitched just slightly. Yes. Laila felt the lie and the truth in that single word. Heavy as chains, sharp as a blade. Ronan smiled slowly. In that case, Zade, I request her as my gift this visit. Gasps rippled through the hall. Layla's knees weakened. She gripped her skirts. Zade's wolf roared inside him. He stepped forward, eyes glowing, just a flash. No! Silence fell like a hammer. Ronan blinked. No? Zade's voice dropped into a deadly calm that sent a shiver through every spine in the hall. It is quite rude, he said, to ask for another Alpha's concubine. His tone was smooth, elegant, but beneath it was pure, animal fury. Ronan studied him, realization dawning. Oh, he murmured. Oh, this is interesting. Zade's jaw clenched so hard the muscle jumped. Do not test me! Ronan raised both hands in surrender and stepped back from Laila, but not before giving her a lingering, deliberate once-over. Just to watch Zade react again. Zade's fingers curled, the tendons in his forearm tightened. A vein beat in his neck. He was 1 second away from violence. Laila slipped out of the hall before anyone could whisper about her. Her heart still raced, her cheeks burning with humiliation and something else she didn't want to name. She barely made it into the quiet corridor when she heard footsteps behind her. Zade. His aura reached her first, thick, charged, dangerous. She turned slowly. His eyes were still glowing faintly, his breathing uneven, his wolf close to the surface. You will stay far from him, he said, voice low. If he tries to speak to you again, you call for me. Immediately. Laila swallowed. Yes, Alpha. He looked at her, really looked, for a moment too long. His gaze traced her face, her braid, the curve of her throat. Something fierce flickered behind his eyes, and then he stepped back sharply, as if burned. His voice hardened. Return to your room. Laila bowed her head and walked away quietly, but she could feel his gaze on her the whole time. Burning, furious, possessive, and unbearably conflicted. Layla's hands trembled as she knocked softly on the Alpha's door. The corridor was quiet. Too quiet. Zade never summoned her at night. When his voice came through the door, low, rough, controlled, her pulse jumped. Enter. She stepped inside. Zade stood by the window, moonlight outlining his tall frame, his broad shoulders, the hard lines of his back. His dark hair brushed the nape of his neck, messy like he had run his hands through it too many times. He didn't look at her at first, but his aura wrapped around her instantly. Possessive, unsettled, angry for reasons he refused to name. When he finally turned, his eyes dragged over her slowly, her soft brown skin, her delicate features, her braid falling over her shoulder, her quiet posture, nervous but dignified. He took one step toward her, then another. Do you know why I called you here, Laila? His voice was calm, too calm. She swallowed. No, Alpha. He circled her, slowly, like a wolf deciding what to do with its prey. You embarrassed me tonight, he murmured. Laila stiffened. By standing in the hall? No. His breath brushed the back of her neck. By letting him look at you. Her heart stumbled. Zade moved in front of her, stopping close. Too close, his chest almost brushing hers. You belong to me in this palace, he said softly, but perhaps I never treated you like it. She blinked, stunned. Heat curled low in her stomach. He tilted his head, studying her with a sharp, hungry gaze. You heard the servants chatter, didn't you? A bitter smile touched his mouth. About why the last concubine ran away. Layla's breath caught. She had heard all those whispers about Zade's intensity, his wildness, his dangerous appetite. He stepped closer. Is that why you tremble now? His voice dropped deep and smoky. Are you afraid? That I might touch you the way they said I touched her? Layla whispered, I'm not afraid of you. Something flashed across his face. Surprise, desire, denial. He lifted his hand slowly, paused, then let his fingers trail lightly across her exposed shoulder. Her breath hitched. His touch was warm, strong, claiming, almost reverent. He circled behind her again, brushing her hair aside with the back of his fingers. Your skin, he murmured. Too soft for the attention you got today. She shivered. He hated that. Yet he loved it. Zade gently turned her around. His fingers wrapped around her chin, lifting her face toward his. Her breath whispered against his. His eyes, usually cold amber, flickered wildly. Shades of molten gold, silver, stormy gray, his wolf fighting him, hard. He stared at her like he could not decide whether to devour her or run from her. His thumb brushed her jaw. Layla's heart pounded so loud she was sure he heard it. Zade didn't blink, didn't breathe. Then the words slipped out of him. Quiet, raw, unguarded, beautiful. Layla's lips parted. He froze as if the word shocked him too. His eyes dropped to her lips, lingering, hungry, tortured. His wolf pushed forward so hard his whole body tensed. For a moment, a single breath, he leaned in. So close she could feel his breath on her mouth. Then, he ripped his hand away like her skin burned him. He turned sharply, back to her, shoulders rigid, jaw clenched. Leave. Layla didn't move. His voice came again, harsh, strained, almost broken. Leave. Now. Her heart squeezed painfully, but she bowed her head and walked to the door. Just as she stepped out, she heard him exhale shakily. The sound of a man losing a battle he never meant to fight. The night air was calm. Until it wasn't. A deep horn blasted through the palace grounds, followed by screams, loud, sharp, tearing through the quiet like claws ripping fabric. Layla dropped the basket of folded linens in her hands as warriors sprinted down the hall. Rogues! Rogue wolves in the east wing! Protect the young! Her heart stopped. Emerald was in that wing, helping the healers carry herbs. Layla ran. Her breath came fast, her braid slapping against her back, her bare feet hitting the cold stone. Doors flew open. Warriors shouted orders. Smoke filled the corridor, thick and choking. Layla shouted, voice cracking. Emerald! But before she reached the courtyard, a massive shadow dropped in front of her. A rogue wolf with matted fur, glowing red eyes, drool dripping from its jaws. It growled, low and hungry. Layla staggered back. Her wolf surged inside her chest, clawing to surface, to fight, to protect her sister. Her bones ached, her nails sharpened, her breath turned heavy. She almost shifted, almost, until the rogue lunged. Its claws tore across her arm and shoulder, ripping through her dress, slicing skin. The pain was white-hot, burning, blinding. Layla screamed and stumbled, crashing to the floor. Blood spilled across her brown skin, warm and frightening. Another rogue grabbed her by the waist, dragging her across the ground. She kicked, clawed, fought, but she was losing strength. Emerald, she sobbed. Then the air trembled. A roar tore through the palace, deep, thunderous, feral. Zade. He shifted mid-stride, bones cracking, fur exploding over muscle. His wolf, huge and black, slammed into the rogue, dragging Laila with such force the walls shook. The rogue hit the far pillar and didn't get up. Another tried to pounce. Zade ripped its throat out with one brutal bite. Warriors flooded the hall behind him, shifting, attacking, tearing into the rogue pack. Zade shifted back to human form instantly, chest rising hard, eyes glowing gold as he dropped to his knees beside Laila. "Laila!" His voice was raw, shaking. "Stay with me." Her vision blurred. They took him." He slid an arm under her legs, another behind her back, lifting her with a gentleness that broke him. Her blood smeared across his skin. It triggered something inside him. Some ancient bond, some violent instinct. His wolf snarled in his throat. "Alpha, we need you in battle." A warrior started. Zade didn't look away from Laila. "Take her to the healer?" She whispered through tears. "No," Zade said. "I'm taking you." He carried her through the chaos, ignoring the gashes on his own arm, ignoring warriors calling his name. The healer gasped at the sight of Laila. "She'll live," Zade growled. "Fix her, now." "Zade, go get Emerald," Laila pleaded, gripping his wrist with bloody fingers. Please bring her back." His jaw clenched so hard his teeth creaked. "I'll get her," he whispered. "I swear it." Her hand slipped from his as the healer pushed him away. Zade turned. His wolf surfaced. His eyes glowed pure gold. "Warriors," he said, voice deadly calm. "We hunt." The forest swallowed him whole. He shifted in one breath, black fur exploding, claws digging into the dirt, muscles bunching with murderous power. His warriors followed. A blur of gray and brown wolves behind him. Emerald's faint scent trail mixed with rogue musk and blood. Zade's wolf snarled, barreling through branches, tearing through the dark like a storm. When they found the rogue's hideout, a ruined stone den, the fight wasn't a fight. It was massacre. Wolves screamed. Bones cracked. Zade's wolf was a shadow, ruthless and unstoppable. No rogue survived his teeth. He tore the leader apart with a rage that shook the earth. And then, through the dust, the blood, the smoke, a small whimper. "Alpha?" "Emerald." Zade shifted back and rushed to her, kneeling beside her tiny, trembling form. Her cheek was bruised, her lip cut, her dress torn. She looked up at him with wide, frightened, green-gold eyes. "Laila. I want Laila." Zade's breath broke. He lifted her like she was made of glass. "It's all right, little one," he murmured, voice barely steady. "I'm taking you home." Emerald buried her face in his chest, sobbing. He held her closer, protective fury humming through him. The palace held its breath as Zade walked through the gates, carrying Emerald in his arms, her small body wrapped in his cloak. Warriors bowed, servants wept. The healer looked up in relief. "But Laila?" Laila tried to sit up the moment she saw her sister. She cried. Emerald ran into her arms, crying so hard her whole body shook. Laila held her tight, burying her face in her hair, whispering thanks between broken sobs. Zade stood a few feet back, covered in blood, bruised, exhausted. But his eyes were on Laila, and for the first time, he didn't hide anything. Fear, rage, relief, and something deeper, heavier, burning through him like wildfire. A feeling he wasn't ready to name. Silence had finally settled over the palace, heavy, exhausted, trembling at the edges. The healers had stopped the bleeding. Emerald had been returned safely. Warriors limped through the halls, bruised and shaken. And Laila was breathing softly at last, tucked beneath layers of blankets in her chamber. Moonlight pooled across her bed, washing over her pale skin, her lashes still damp from tears shed before she lost consciousness. The healers said she'd wake by morning. They said she was stable. But Zade didn't trust words. He trusted scent. He trusted instinct. He trusted the wild, desperate pull of the bond gnawing at his ribs. He pushed open her chamber door with barely a sound. Inside, the world went still. She lay curled slightly on her side. Hair fanned across the pillow like dark silk. The bandage around her waist was thick, the faint scent of herbs rising from it. Her breathing was shallow but even. In sleep, she looked heartbreakingly small. Zade moved to her bedside slowly, as if afraid to disturb even the air around her. His hand hovered over her cheek first. Then he gave in. His fingertips brushed the crest of her cheekbone, feather-light. They drifted down her jaw, tracing the soft line of her throat, pausing above the bandaged wound as though he could shield it with touch alone. Her skin was warm. Too warm. His wolf pushed forward, snarling at the memory of her collapsing, her blood pooling beneath her, her voice breaking as she begged him to save her sister instead of herself. A quiet, rough breath escaped him. "What am I supposed to do with you?" he muttered under his breath, but it wasn't anger, nothing like anger. It was something raw, dangerous, claiming. He leaned closer, brushing a stray curl back behind her ear. His thumb traced the corner of her mouth as if trying to memorize whatever softness he nearly lost. She stirred, just faintly, her lips parting, a soft sound escaping. But she didn't wake. Zade froze. Then slowly, carefully. He lowered his forehead to hers for a moment, eyes closing, breath mingling with her sleeping one. The bond pulsed. Slow, deep, alive. It wasn't impatience. It wasn't demand. It was recognition. It was certainty. He straightened only slightly, his lips near her temple, voice low enough that only the moon could hear it. Mine. A promise, a warning, a vow. Then he turned and left her chamber, shutting the door behind him with a gentleness none of his warriors would ever believe he possessed. The scars of the rogue attack had barely faded from the palace walls when the shift inside Zade finally finished breaking. Weeks passed. Weeks where he watched Laila recover, watched her laugh weakly when Emerald brought flowers, watched her push through pain with the same quiet fire that had driven her to throw herself in front of a rogue's claws. Weeks where his wolf whispered hours every time her scent drifted near. And one night, when the moon was a soft silver bowl pouring light across her chamber, Zade finally stopped fighting. He chose. Not as alpha, not as heir, not because destiny demanded, but because the woman lying before him had already changed something inside him that he couldn't unchange. He found her on the terrace, wrapped in a simple shawl, staring out over the forest. The wind moved gently through her hair, carrying that scent he could never ignore. She turned when she sensed him. "Alpha," she whispered, startled, respectful as always. "Not tonight." Zade walked toward her with slow, deliberate steps, close enough that she could feel the heat of him at her back. "Turn around, Laila." She obeyed, heart thrumming so loudly he could hear every beat. His hand came up, cupping her jaw gently, so gently it stole her breath. "I choose you," he said softly, voice stripped of every wall he ever built. "Not because the moon tied our souls, not because fate tangled our paths." He leaned closer, forehead touching hers. "But because you're the woman who gave up everything to save the girl you love." Her lips parted in stunned silence. He continued, voice trembling just slightly, almost human. You guarded Emerald with your life. You faced rogues alone. You bled, and you still begged me to save her instead of you. His thumb brushed her cheek. I won't pretend anymore. I can't. The bond surged, hot and sweet, curling through their chests like vines of light. Laila! Her name was almost a growl. I choose you. Her eyes shined, wide, overwhelmed, her wolf pushing forward with soft submission and fierce joy. Alpha, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. He dipped his head, lips brushing her pulse. Just a breath, just a promise, before marking her with a slow, gentle bite that sent lightning through both of them. Her knees nearly buckled, his arms wrapped around her instantly, drawing her against him as the mate bond locked, warm, fierce, unbreakable. Their wolves howled in perfect harmony. The next morning, the entire pack gathered in the courtyard, murmuring, confused. Laila stood beside Emerald, still recovering, still shy, unaware of what Zade planned to do next. Then the Alpha stepped forward. Sakara pack, he commanded, voice echoing like thunder. I have an announcement. The crowd hushed instantly. Zade's gaze found Laila, held her, claimed her. This woman, he said, gesturing to Laila, is not my concubine. Gasps rippled through the pack. She is my mate, the one the moon chose, the one I choose. Silence. Shocked, ringing silence. And she will be your future Luna. A roar of disbelief, awe, murmurs soaring through the courtyard. Laila froze, trembling. Zade stepped down from the high platform, and in front of everyone, elders, warriors, servants, the Alpha King of Sakara knelt at her feet. Then he touched her wrist gently, reverently, and marked her fully, sealing their bond with the entire pack as witness. Laila inhaled sharply, eyes flooding. Emerald burst into tears, throwing her arms around her sister from behind, laughing and crying all at once. I knew it! I knew it! Warriors bowed. Elders lowered their heads. The pack accepted their Luna, grass to grace, servant to queen. A girl who had nothing now held everything. And Zade stood, wrapped an arm around Laila's waist, and whispered against her temple, Welcome home, my Luna. Author's note. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Laila, Emerald, and Zade's journey was born from a place of pain, sacrifice, and slow, healing love. And if it touched your heart even a little, I'm truly grateful. This story is for every big sister who would give the world for the ones she loves. For every girl who felt unseen until someone finally looked deeper. And for anyone who's ever believed they were too small to matter, only to discover they were powerful all along. May this story remind you that sacrifice can lead to miracles, that love can grow even in the coldest places, and that sometimes destiny finds us when we've stopped looking for it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling with me. Thank you for allowing me to tell this tale. And if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps this channel grow and brings more stories like this to life. Until the next story, stay safe, stay soft, and stay magical. Love from Yara.